this is Jimmy Archer with Inside Triathlon, and I'm sitting here with Jonathan Toker from SaltStick out on the patio of the Inside Triathlon Intercontinental Media Center out here in Kona. We got some turtles swimming behind us and the surf breaking, so hopefully it's not going to be too loud. But got Jonathan here because we were going to talk a little bit about SaltStick, salt caplets, basically keeping your minerals up and your salt intake up for the race, for an Ironman, which the World Championships are coming up here in a couple of days. And this has kind of been a hot topic lately. A lot of people getting involved with salt tablets and starting to take them for the first time and really don't know exactly what they're doing. And right here we've got one of the experts in that realm. And so why don't you start off by telling me why I just said what I said. Why are you the guy to talk to? What's your background? How do you know about the salt intake?
Sure, thanks Jimmy. Well, a hot topic is exactly right, because when it gets hot out, this becomes really important for athletes. So I have a background in chemistry. I actually have a PhD in chemistry and have developed the certain product to address basically electrolyte deficiency in athletes. Now, there are currently quite a number of research studies that have been done and are ongoing as to why athletes begin to cramp when they've done a lot of, basically when you get out there for over 2 hours, an hour and a half, you start sweating a lot. And over time, you're going to lose salt in your sweat. And this is normal table salt, but it's also, which is sodium chloride, but you're also losing potassium, magnesium, and calcium. And all of these are really important to replace over time, because when you lose too much of that, you're going to start cramping.
Your muscles are all key minerals to your muscle function and contractions, and when you're running low, you cramp.
Exactly. So I use my background in chemistry and my scientific experience to come up with a formulation that really addresses what athletes need.
Okay, and we should probably say that Jonathan also has been a professional triathlete as well, so he has a little personal experience in this, as well as like ample knowledge.
This is true. 9-time Ironman finisher.
Nine times.
Just over 9 hours.
So you got me by like 6.
So I certainly have some actual experience myself in using salt capsules. So I guess I'd like to tell a bit more about what the body needs in terms of salt.
Yeah, why don't you break it down for me?
In sweat, you basically have a lot of sodium. And let's say an average of about 10 ounces of sweat might have about 200 milligrams of sodium in it. It also has about 60 milligrams of potassium, and you lose about 20 milligrams of calcium and about 10 milligrams of magnesium in that same amount of sweat. Now these are average numbers.
There's a lot in there, not just water.
There's a lot in there. And if you're a salty sweater, you'll see that after a period of time you'll have white on your clothes. Not everyone is a salty sweater.
Webbing on your helmet.
Exactly.
Around the sideburns.
Exactly. Now, just to clarify, not everyone's a salty sweater, so all of this depends very much on individual athletes and how their bodies react to the heat. And it also is worth mentioning that it's not only in the heat. It's whenever you're sweating and you're drinking water to replace what you've lost. That brings me actually to another interesting point, which is what Gatorade's done in their Gatorade Sports Institute and their studies. They really have shown that electrolytes are important. They've certainly pioneered that field.
Gatorade's, for those who don't know, the Sports Institute basically has a lab. They stick you in and turn up the heat, have you get on a bike or run, treadmill, and basically measure through various different means how much you're actually sweating, what your actual sweat rate is, which is a little bit personal. You know, person to person, you get a little variation, but there's kind of a ballpark that most people fit in, I believe.
Right. There is, and on average, people lose approximately 400 milligrams to 1 gram of sodium per hour. And you can replace that with a couple of salt capsules, in addition to drinking electrolyte drinks. And this is what Gatorade obviously is capitalizing on, that they're encouraging people to drink their new endurance formula because it does supply you with more sodium and potassium. And they recognize this as a need for athletes. The problem is, though, is that they can't put in enough sodium and potassium in your drink and still make it palatable. It tastes horrible if they put enough in. So they do what they can, and they encourage people to drink a lot of it, but ultimately, over time, you're still going to be depleted, and you're going to start cramping. So that's where salt capsules come in.
I mean, just little, basically the size of your average vitamin or an aspirin.
Exactly. And it comes in a bottle like this, which is certainly available at the expo here in Ironman, and hopefully at retailers nationwide and certainly around the world pretty soon.
And can you get that off the internet?
And you can get that off the SaltStick.com website, and you can get a lot more information on the science behind the SaltStick product and how it compares with some of the other products that are used by most athletes these days. This product's only been on the market since April, and it's certainly taken off, as we'll talk about a bit later, by who's using the product and certainly some of the results that have been achieved with the product already this year. The recommended usage is 1 to 2 capsules per hour, and that's basically on average for an average person. Now, in terms of you personally, what you do is you would try it out in training, and you would take 1 to 2 per hour, and sometimes you take 1, sometimes you take 2, and you'd see what works. And if you find that you're still cramping, then you go to 3 per hour. So it's very much dependent on the conditions. A day like today in Hawaii, when it's 90 degrees and 90% humidity, I think you're going to need probably a lot more than if you are just out riding on a cooler day when you may not need any, depending on your personal sweat rate. So it's something you're going to have to play lab rat a little bit yourself on your own and just try it out, see what works for you.
And so another thing with that, is there any risk? I mean, you hear of people talking about, like, you know, GI issues or upset stomach from, you know, various things.
Sure.
I mean, overhydration, underhydration, too much nourishment, not enough. How about salt?
Sure. There's always that risk. Anytime you eat anything, you have the potential issue to have stomach upset.
Yeah.
Especially when you're under race conditions and you're forcing yourself a little bit harder, you're not absorbing stuff quite as easily. That's certainly a possibility. I was talking to Dave Scott yesterday, and we were chatting about salt, and that basically the consensus is that it's better to have more than less.
Yeah.
And it's better to overestimate than to underestimate, because if you overestimate, the worst that's going to happen is you start feeling a little nauseous. But it really takes a lot before you start feeling that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you underestimate, you're going to start cramping, and then, although the salt will help replenish your electrolyte levels very quickly, in fact, then you're more likely to...
Good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. So although the salt's likely to replace electrolyte levels in your body quite quickly, within a couple of minutes in fact, your body still has that sort of residual effect of not having necessarily as much sodium in its system. So it may be more prolonged if you let it occur. It's much better to catch it before you start cramping in the first place.
How do you